Welcome back, everyone, to Montgomery County's Engage at Home, brought to you by the county's Caregiver Support Program. Our guest today is Eddie Rivas. Eddie is the Vice Chair of the county's Commission on Aging. He is the Vice President of the Potomac Community Village and a board member with the National Village to Village Network. Eddie has a wealth of experience and we are going to tap into it. So welcome, Eddie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Now, I know that not everyone who is watching this episode knows what a village is. And I would love it if you would start our interview with just letting people know what's a village.
Okay. Villages at a very basic level are not for profit, membership driven entities. They're usually developed at the local level. And by local, I mean they can be neighborhood or zip codes, but local geographically, self governing and self supporting. Those are all key aspects of what a village is. Across the country, villages have, really depended on volunteer assistance to really be able to do the services that we provide. The National Village Movement across the country has over 300 villages already operating or in close development of being able to operate. And again, serving the older adults in their communities. We offer supportive services and social engagement to the older people who want to remain living in their homes and in their communities. A village doesn't require you to move out. To the contrary, we want you to stay home for as long as it's safe and you can have good quality of care. Those are the important aspects of villages. Here in Montgomery County, we have approximately 30 villages that are operating, and in the District, Maryland, and Virginia area, the DC metro area, we have about 75 villages in operation.
Thank you. Thank you. And I always like people to know that's what a village is. You stay in your community, you stay in your home, and then you create around you all of these wonderful friendships and supports. So, one of those supports is what we're here today to talk about, which is transportation. How do villages actually help members who have transportation needs?
Well, villages in general can provide rides to their members. And by rides, it can be for multiple purposes. One person may need a ride to their doctor, their dentist appointment, their medical appointments. Another person might need a ride to go grocery shopping or just to do errands. Um, some villages will provide rides to their members to the social events that we organize, or even in person events like educational forums and things like that. There are some villages that will also provide a ride just to go visit your neighbors or your friends, or perhaps even to go to a place of worship, if that's what you need. It all depends on the ability of the village to be able to provide the volunteer driver to do that for you. The other thing that we do, or at least Potomac Community Village will do, is make a referral to the multitude of good transportation resources Montgomery County has. Um, our website, the county's senior website, has a wonderful list of resources, things including Metro Access, which is the DC Metro System's accessible vehicle for wheelchair transports, Connect a Ride, Call a Ride, which is a taxi service. We've got a lot of different volunteer entities and even discounted taxi cab rides. So there's a lot in the county, but the villages are just a part of that whole system of potential rides for people who no longer drive.
Thank you. And I agree that link on the county's website is fantastic. And I will include that link in the description where people found this video.
Great, thank you.
So a little bit more about volunteer transportation. It's a fascinating model. And I'm just wondering if you could help people understand how that works within the village context.
Okay, and I'll use again Potomac Community Village as an example where for our village, the individual most likely picks up the phone and calls our help desk. We have a number that is always either monitored by somebody in person or receives voice messages. And they call and they say, I've got a doctor's appointment on this date, this time, this location, wondering if I can get a ride. And we usually require a couple days notice, at least a few days notice, preferably the longer period the better. You can't expect to pick up the phone and call for a ride today or tomorrow. It's hard to find volunteers that quickly. But once the ride request is registered, then the village will find a driver. They will usually give the driver the contact information, and then the driver reaches out to the individual to confirm their ride and all the details. That's generally how it works. And again, depending on the driver's abilities and comfort level, they may pull up and wait for the person. They may go and knock on the door and help the person out. They may even, especially if they've gone grocery shopping, help the person in and out of their house and help them with packages. So it all depends. But there's that flexibility in working with the volunteer that comes from a village. That's what we focus the most on, is being flexible so that the individual member gets what they need if we can provide it.
Mm. And you've mentioned the various villages. I will include a link in the description where people found this video to the county's village directory, so people can easily find out where they have a village in their neighborhood.
Yes, that directory is wonderful because it has a map so that people can see the coverage areas for different villages. And if they don't fit in one of those coverage areas, like I said before, there are still plenty of resources for transportation that can be accessed calling the number, the 3000 line that the county has, that your department has.
And thank you, that gives me something wonderful to share. So the number that Eddie just referred to is the county's Aging and Disability Resource Unit, and the number is 240-777-3000. I'll also include that in the description where you found this episode.
Good.
So villages help their members, and they help them obviously with a whole range of things. We're talking about transportation, but it also sounds like you also would partner with other organizations to assist people who are still driving to do it well.
This is true. One thing that again, and I guess I had neglected to say this, and it's for comfort's sake, villages, when someone volunteers to be a driver, the village will check their safety record, make sure they're insured, and make sure that they have no criminal background issues, feel safe with that individual. But we also look at making sure that for those who are still driving, that there are opportunities for training. For instance, AARP in the past has had what they called their older driver safety program, which was either a classroom program or now a virtual program, to remind an individual of just basic safety tips as drivers, as older drivers. Simple things like placement of the hands and using the mirrors. And I'm sure they've updated it to make sure that you learn how to use your backup cameras, whatever. But they also have something called a car fit program, which allows the individual to work with a volunteer who will look at your individual car and how you fit into it and how to make sure that you're using all the features of your personal car. So if you're driving a little sports car or a big pickup truck, they can tell you, make sure that you're 18 inches away from the airbag, that you have your mirrors set so that at nighttime you don't get the reflections, all those kinds of things. It's called the Car Fit program. And villages will help people access those programs.
Oh, excellent. So it sounds like the villages, become a member. You can learn about driver safety. You can maybe get volunteer assistance with actual drive, getting somewhere. and participate in activities that are fun and enjoyable. So, what else would you like our viewers to know about the villages and or transportation?
In reference to the transportation mobility issues with the villages, I think it's important for people to understand that even, for instance, myself, I'm perfectly capable of driving myself and doing errands, but there may come a day when I no longer want to drive at rush hour or don't want to drive on the highways, or even maybe I'm only comfortable driving in daylight hours. Villages and offering rides with other volunteers makes that transition easier for me. It makes the transition easier for the individual who's feeling a little more vulnerable in their driving style. And as traffic picks up in around cities and things like that, it makes it easier to transition away, to start looking for alternatives and have that flexibility. And ultimately, makes it easier to just slide into the passenger seat and get a ride. I often say to my spouse, I love it when she drives because I get tired of driving myself. So all of us get to that point where, we want to not necessarily give up the keys, even though that day will come, but we want to have access to a ride if we need it. So that's the
Mm,
important thing, that villages can help the individual with that transition.
yeah. And in reality, what we're all on about is that we want people to stay active and safe. And if we put the active first, then it means that, whether someone is behind the wheel really isn't the most important thing. It's whether they are able to stay healthy and engaged. So I'm really glad that we've had this time to chat.
And ultimately, it's quality of life as well. All those things contribute to the quality of life of the individual. So,
It's so true, so true. So we are near the end of our interview. What else is a role that people can have with villages?
well, again, you can be a member and take advantage of the different offerings, educational and social engagement that villages have. Um, but it also, villages provide a really, really wonderful opportunity for engagement and as a volunteer, especially if you want to volunteer and do something. You don't have to be a member of a village to be a volunteer driver, for instance. Some villages are happy to have members of the community come in and provide rides as well. Again, the idea being we're there to provide camaraderie, to reduce that social isolation some elders feel. Um, I will tell you that from the Commission on Aging's perspective, we're very committed to making sure that villages are successful in our county. Um, the Aging and Disabilities Office is very committed to it. We have 5 commissioners now on the Commission on Aging who are village leaders in their communities. And I guess the last thing I'd like to really hone in on is just letting people know how villages really help augment the aging services networks throughout the country. But we're doing it with volunteer labor. We know that the public sector, the government can't pay for all the home and community-based services individuals may need as they age and as the aging population increases. So villages can have a role in helping augment those services so that, again, everybody can remain in their homes, in their communities with quality of life.
So well put, Eddie. And, very near and dear to my heart, keeping connected with others, having that breath of fresh air that really comes from when we get out of our own skin and be with other people. So I really congratulate you as both a commissioner and a leader within the village movement.
Thank you, Lily. And again, thanks for the opportunity to come and give our little spiel about villages and their role in the mobility and transportation of the elders. It's really important.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You have been watching Engage at Home. You have had the opportunity to learn about villages, transportation, and all the amazing resources that are given through the county and our village community. We will include in the description where you found this video the resources that Eddie mentioned. I want to thank everyone for being part of this episode, and I want to remind people to stay calm.